Welcome into the Inside Bassmaster Podcast presented by Black Rifle Coffee Company, episode 129, and it is tournament week, Kyle. It feels like tournament week was just like the other day, and now we have another Bassmaster Elite Series tournament coming up. This will be the sixth stop of the Bassmaster Elite Series season and the last one of the South. The last three of the season, St. Clair, Champlain, and the St. Lawrence are all northern events, and they'll all take place. This is kind of our big event before we take a long break. We got about a month and a half until the next stop of the season. So if you didn't get your points for Angler of the Year or for the Classic at any of the last few stops, you better get them now, because if you're a Southern angler, it's going to get a lot chillier and a lot more smallmouth in your future up north. But welcome into the podcast. I'm Ronnie Moore, your host today, and my co-host as usual, my guy Kyle. Jessie, always keeping us informed of what's going on Bassmaster.com. Also on site for most every tournament we have in Bassmaster. So it has been a few weeks, but I know you haven't slowed down at any point of your workflow, Kyle. But I'm glad you joined me for this podcast. Look forward to previewing the Sabine with you.
Yeah, you mentioned that it was tournament week. I don't know that it's really necessary saying it's tournament week, because every week's tournament week. We got tournaments every week, seems like. But no, it's going to slow down eventually. Obviously, this is just the time of the year. Obviously, you're talking about all the way from March to, really February, all the way to early June, is when the bulk of the tournaments happen in the South. I think that the Sabine, obviously we're going to get into it a lot. It always prevents a lot of storylines. A lot of things happen. Obviously the anglers always make jokes about it. We've even made jokes about it on the podcast, just because the weights are never super high. There's not a ton of big fish in the lake or in the body of water, but it always provides an interesting tournament. I mean, you talk about it, this is the only tournament of the year where it's a traditional post-spawn, hot weather, summertime grinder. Like, this is, to me, this is like kind of the tournament for everyday people. And what I mean by that is, like, for me, when I get to go fishing in June or, July or whatever it may be, it's always a grind. Like, you fish in the South in the heat of the summer, which, obviously in East Texas, it's going to be hot already. It's not going to be like it will be in August, but it's going to be warm. It's going to be a grinder, but it provides a different style of tournament for Elite Series anglers. Provides a new challenge. I know that a lot of guys, I've talked to Greg Hackney before about it. He loves these style tournaments. There's a lot of guys that enjoy this, because a lot of guys cut their teeth coming up fishing, river style tournaments in the heat of the summer, just grinder style tournaments. So I'm looking forward to it. I always love this tournament every time we come here, because it does provide something different. It makes guys, fish. I guess that's the best way to put it. Now, that's no disrespect to, tournaments where electronics play in, and it's no disrespect to any other type of tournament. But this is one of those where you pretty much just have to put your head down and fish. And, at the end of the 4 days, whoever wins deserves it, just like any other champion in any other Elite Series tournament.
Yeah, I like these tournaments for a different reason as well. The Winyah Bays, even the Lay Lakes, the Sabine Rivers, even if the weights are different in all of those different venues, a 5-pounder, I told this to Tommy Sanders in the live well, which obviously airs on Bassmaster.com this week for tournament week, but a 5-pounder at Santee Cooper most times of the year is fine. It's a good fish. In Florida, it's a good fish. At some of these destinations, a 5-pounder is a game changer, and it keeps you in the game. It puts you in the game if you're not in the game currently. It's just like Lay Lake. You had a 9-pounder from Jason Christie. He goes from in the top 6 after day 1, drops down to 17th after day 2, rises up into second place, and everyone is fearing that he could win the event because he caught one. He had a great bag, but he had one giant bite that changes the tournament. And if you land that fish, you have a chance to win. If you don't land that fish, you're down the leaderboard and no one hears your story. Same thing happens at the Sabine River every single year. There are 5-pounders that live in there. You catch one, you're in the game. If you don't, you better have a bunch of 2s. You better have 10 pounds with no kicker. You better have 12 pounds with no kicker if you want to survive. So I'm excited to be here. Just for reference, we've been here 4 times previously with the Elite Series, and we had one open. Basically, rule of thumb, 12 pounds a day has you right there in the mix for a win. We had 49 pounds win the first time we were here with Todd Faircloth winning that. We had Louisiana Waters in play that year. Then we go when Chris Lane won. It took 50 pounds even to win. So basically that 12 and change, 12 and a half pounds a day gets you 50 pounds. Then we had Greg Hackney in June, which is the only time that we've had an Elite Series event the same week of the year that we're having it now. All these other ones were around the April, the March, April. And I think one of them started the Elite season back when we used to have the Classic in February and then the first Elite in March. So we've had March and April a couple times. When we were here in June, it took 48 pounds for Greg Hackney to win, right there on that 12 a day. And then in April last time, when Jason Christie won, it only took 43 and change. So it was kind of a different scenario there. It kind of did get a little narrowed down, but that happens on a delta type body of water, has this hurricane influence. You kind of get that cyclical nature. God does his thing with the weather, and some of these bodies of water filter out. So we've also seen 4 different areas win at the Sabine River. We've had Houston factor a couple times, but never get the win. We're going to have one of the closest Elite Series pros that we could possibly get on this episode of the Bassmaster Podcast, and that would be Darold Gleason. Gleason lives just north of Sabine River on Toledo Bend Reservoir. We obviously know Toledo Bend very well. They're totally different, but maybe a little bit of experience, maybe a little bit of knowledge for Darold Gleason as we go to the Sabine River. Kyle, like I mentioned, guy just up the road, maybe, I don't know, what is it, 50, 60 miles maybe from takeoff to where you live, maybe farther, but just above, it's still on the Sabine River, Toledo Bend Reservoir, and our guy Darold Gleason. Darold, welcome to the Inside Bassmaster Podcast. Appreciate you joining us to kind of preview, I guess, the closest body of water you could fish on the Elites other than your home lake.
Yeah, man, it's awesome. We not going to have too far of a ride down there. I believe it's an hour and a half, 2 hours, something like that. So I like to call Toledo Bend the upper Sabine River. Yeah, ready to get down there and get started, man.
So just for the people that haven't paid attention, the 2 bodies of water are almost identical, right? That's correct. They're basically the same exact thing.
Yeah, you see that swimming back there? Yeah, man, they're all down in Sabine River as well. It's no, it's Toledo Bend's obviously an impoundment. The Sabine River runs through it. Probably in the early 60s, late 50s, maybe they were similar prior to this place being impounded and created. But no, they're vastly, vastly different. But what goes on up here, Sam Rayburn, Lake Livingston, that can all affect what's going on down there that we'll be dealing with, next week.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that, with a body of water, we were talking about it before we added you into the podcast, the delta type bodies of water that are affected by the ocean, whether it's tides, saltwater influx, hurricanes, it's kind of the own, God's way of cyclically, cycling out fisheries and changing them up. So the Sabine weights have always been pretty relatively, 12 pounds a day gets you the win. But we saw in, I believe, April of 21, your rookie year, it only took 43 pounds. It took just under 11 a day, which doesn't seem like a lot. But when you're at 12 a day, 11 a day seems like a little bit of a setback. Talk to us. Do you think, going back to June, we were there in 2018 in June, it had 48 pounds, Greg Hackney won. What does the Sabine River in June offer that April doesn't, or vice versa, in your opinion?
So I think it'll fish a little bit more traditionally like a river. And folks that have followed my career and stuff, I'm not a super big time river rat. I love Toledo Bend and I like deep water. But I think it's going to fish more of your current's going to play a little more of the front of the canals, a lot more of the river could play. I've watched some of the coverage from 2018, obviously refreshing, kind of see what was going on then. And it's more like the fish are feeding. It's more of a river time, like they're ready to eat. Things are going on. When we were there in 21, it was much more spawn oriented. I don't believe Jason Christie was necessarily catching spawners, but a lot of the field were catching spawn and fry garters and things like that. And this might be the first event of the season that is finally over with. I know the Drews don't want to hear that, but the spawn has to end at some point. Okay. So I think it's just going to be more like an old grimy river tournament, man. And like I said, depending on what's going on some of the reservoirs above and what kind of water's coming down and all that, you're going to see, I would believe, some more current stuff, just a regular old school river tournament. Not necessarily everybody in the canals and oxbows, but you'll see a good variety. And always the wild card down there is if someone can do like Jason did last time, and find something, run far enough away from everybody, or find something that gets overlooked or something like that, and have it to yourself. It's hard down there. It's a lot of water, but I've competed down there in a Bassmaster Open and the Elite Series. And it's just weird at the Elite Series, man. I ran 45 miles and still fished with 20 guys. It's a lot of water, but it seems like with being so much brackish water and because of hurricanes, you're talking about some of the cyclical stuff, there's not lots of great cover in a lot of these places. It looks pretty on Google Earth, and when you get there, it looks desolate, like Mad Max. It just doesn't look right. So it always ends up kind of fishing small, fishing in the crowd, like watching part of the coverage. I saw more little, we'll call them tickle fights from 2018 because it fishes so small with guys. We're all jockeying for a few fish and a little bit of water. So I'm hoping conditions are set up where to fish a little bigger for us and just be a good old school river tournament.
You kind of mentioned that, but it seems like that almost seems to be the case, like at least for myself growing up in Arkansas, fishing the Arkansas River, like a lot of times these bodies of water seem to be as good in the summertime as they would be in the spring, as where,
right.
If you fished a Highland Reservoir in April compared to fishing it in June or July, it wouldn't even be close. But fishing a place like the Sabine River in June kind of stabilizes things out, knock on wood, because I'll say that, and it'll be just completely blown out and crazy. Right. But it seems like it almost stabilizes things out to where you can, consistently find one thing and kind of run with it. Is that correct, you think?
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. And I kind of think, to me, when you pull spawn out of it and a fish acts like a fish does when they're not all Twitter pated thinking about spawning, it makes it a little more predictable. And it seems like areas are a little more likely to replenish. I mean, traditionally, that's been a hard thing down there, is to find an area, manage it, milk it. Because, again, you're sharing with so many anglers. But I could see, like the spawn just seems to congregate us and the fish. I could see this time being a little more different. And Arkansas River is a very good comparison. I could see, like I've been to Muskogee, for opens through the years many times. I could kind of see, but you're going to see all of it, man. The canals will play, some of those bayous will play. It'll be a mixture, dude. It's always fascinating to me when these events are over, especially a river tournament, because your true river heads, to me, are so good about all those little details. Like there's a little tide down there. The wind can blow 200 miles in Texas somewhere, a certain direction, and it can affect their area. Like they're so good at those little details that that's really what it comes down to me is those details, managing your areas and landing every bass over 2 pounds that bites. Literally, there's one from 21. I lost like a 4-pounder. And, we're not supposed to think of fish we lost, but come on. I've had nightmares over that fish for 2 years, dude. Nightmares. That's a giant down there. So, it can be hard on you to really stay focused. And when you get your bite, you got to execute it. And that's what's going to make the guys rise to the top.
That's what I just told Kyle. I said, I love these Winyah Bays, Lay Lakes, Sabine Rivers. Like, I know everybody loves to see 85 to 100 pounds for the winning weight. But, man, we had some dynamics at Lay Lake where you got 3 or 4 guys within a bite of winning the event. Murray, same kind of thing. That was a higher weight deal. But I love the dramatics of a 5-pounder meaning more. And at Sabine River, it means more. It means I'm not in the game, now I'm in the game. Or I'm in the game, now I'm leading the game. So right. What's Darold Gleason's Ocean Pony alert? If we had a BFA for that, like we have on Bass Live, what would you set your Ocean Pony for at Sabine? Like, what you're going to catch one? Give us a weight that you're going to dignify that as being an Ocean Pony.
Dude, I'm telling you, like you just talked about, I mean, like 11 to 12 pounds, wins these events every time. What's the biggest stringer down there? 16 and a half?
Yeah, somewhere,
16,
I think.
Something like that?
Yeah, I mean.
Hackney day one seems like it's about the biggest I can remember. It was 16 or 17 around there.
Yeah, and look, you got to throw back the years where y'all could go to Louisiana. Like, throw them out.
Yeah.
That's the Wild Wild West over there. It's different. Dude, I'm getting pretty excited for a 2 3/4 pounder, 3-pounder, be honest. I know there's some 5-pounders down there. Like big bass is usually like a 5 or 6-pounder. Those are possible. But I mean, dude, if you get in 2 days, you get a 3-pounder each day, you're fishing Saturday. And, I know some of the guys don't like to talk about that, but we are all trying to fish Saturdays before we make a Sunday. But yeah, they got 5-6-pounders. I mean, I've seen, like, I have a lot of friends on social media and stuff that fish down there and stuff through the years. I've seen some big fish caught here and there. I think a few may trickle down from Toledo Bend and Rayburn.
Well, I think I have a couple buddies who obviously live in that area that help,
Yeah.
with our volunteers, and they fish tournaments. There's obviously like Jack Tyndall's in that region. He's
Yeah.
a college angler. These guys. And when I see them share on Facebook, it's like 8 pounds, 7 ounces was tonight's big bet. I'm like, holy smokes, where? And so there are
not
glimpses
in Texas,
of that.
usually.
Yeah, that's the
usually
thing.
Louisiana. Yeah.
And that's the one cool thing, Kyle, that we talked about is we've seen 4 different Elite Series events here, and the first year where Todd Faircloth won, that was where Louisiana was in play as well. And then Chris Lane wins, Greg Hackney wins, Jason Christie wins. We've seen 4 different regions of the Sabine River win. We've also seen Houston come into play a few times and get close to winning, but not. Those are often the things. We see the extremes, Darold. We see the far north and the far west get the attention. But do you think about that going into the event, or do you think about I've got to find somewhere in between far north and far west to live my life for the week? Because that's just so unsustainable to make 4 runs, 8 trips back and forth successfully doing that.
Man, I think that's different for everybody. Like with everything in fishing, we all have our own style and preference, where you're sitting at in AOI, where you're sitting in your career, like all those kind of things seriously factor in, like, because it's a big gamble to run way off. But it's a big gamble to, like I said, I went 45 minutes and fished in a bayou like 20 boats. Like it's hard to keep your confidence high when you're throwing at a cypress tree that was just fished 15 minutes before, So that's the stuff I'm contemplating this week. That's what I'm spending my time doing, get my tackle ready and stuff. And I've stared at Google Earth so much, man, like it puts me to bed every night, just trying to see, get familiar with what it's going to look like. But it all comes down to something I've been working on, is just having better practices, managing my time better. So I'm trying to make those decisions now, like, hey, I want to go look at this, look at that. But dude, you see it all there. For me personally, the problem I have running way off to like Houston or something, there's a lot of risk in the time you run, and obviously mechanical failures, the roughness of crossing those bays, all those things factor in. But what if you draw boat 30 and 4 guys ahead of you go? Like, it's not like Brock Mosley had a lot of water when he was over there. I think he had another angler or 2 there. So you're about to run, what, an hour and a half, 2 hours one way, and you're just playing the lottery that you're the guy that gets there first. So all those are factors these guys make, dude. It's what's amazing how, like, this is my 3rd year out here, seeing how these guys do it and how often that decision works out for them. A lot of times we don't see the guys that make the wrong decisions. We're the guys, not doing so well. So I go back and forth, dude. I looked at some stuff. I'm like, I've never seen anybody run way up here. I might try that. And then you're like, well, what if something goes wrong and I'm, break down or don't catch them? If you run off and you get there and the water conditions are messed up, what do? I mean, you're in trouble. So
you go flounder fishing.
These are the big boy decisions, dude. Yeah. I mean, that's
catch some hammerheads.
Flounder, redfish. Yeah. Shoot pick. A lot of variety down there. So yeah, I mean, I'm trying to make some of those decisions this week.
Catch an Astros game. You go to an Astros
Some
game.
Some people actually have. Yeah, they've actually ran close enough to do that. I don't know. And then the logistics of like trying to find fuel, things like that.
Yeah, especially up north. There's like nothing. There's no civilization until you get to the dam.
It was a big story about Jason Christie, how he manages fuel and all that. I mean, guys would probably try to go further toward Toledo Bend Dam if there was fuel somewhere. I mean, there's just nowhere to get fuel. So these are all those decisions. I'm trying to think about some of that this week, but I try not to get overwhelmed with these places because there's a lot going on, dude. A lot of factors. In the end, we all know that it's going to fish a little small generally. It's not necessarily big weights, but there's a good thing to that because you're never out of it. You're like 1 or 2 bites away. No matter what happens at any moment, 1 or 2 bites away from something special happening.
Well, it seems like that was one thing I was going to mention, and Ronnie and I have talked about this, is that last the last time we were there, the final day, it seemed like it seemed like 3 hours. We basically were sitting there just lulled to sleep over the fact that Christie was just going to run away with this. But then you look at the weights and you're like, if Mosley catches a big one on a frog here, like he just keeps fishing down this row of grass, like he catches a 4 or 5 pounder and he's going to win. And like, we're just not even associating that to be like a possibility. How do you as an angler, like, during that long day, just continue to like stay positive and try to keep that mindset that, like you said, that one big one can change everything?
Well, it's a combination of psychosis and craziness mixed with supreme competitor. Like, I mean, I literally had an event this year where I was singing "Wheels on the Bus Go Round." Like, I was literally singing that out loud because I felt the wheels coming off. Like I was trying to stop the implosion from occurring. So, I mean, the biggest thing, dude, is you got to have faith in your decision making, trust your gut. You hear us say that, dude, but in those moments, that's when that stuff, if you let it, mess with you, that's where it gets you. And so that's part of the factors in this, man, dude. If you're going down a bank and there's a boat 200 yards ahead of you and you see him catch 3 and you hadn't caught one, like, dude, that can get you. So you just got to keep your eye on the prize. Like I was saying, you're looking to catch like a good bag down there to make day 3 is going to be, I would say 9 pounds for sure is going to get you in. That's a couple bites, dude. It's one little hot streak. So, and we can get lulled in, like y'all were saying, after you've watched 4 days of guys grinding and not catching large fish. I think in 2016, like Swindle made a big jump, maybe. Didn't he have like a 5 or 6 pounder?
Yep.
Like out of nowhere. So that can happen day 1. That can happen with 15 minutes to go. That's the thing as a competitor you got to remember is like everything you want is right in front of you. Just a matter of whether or not you can get to it before the day's over. When
you get that bite, you got to get it in the boat. It's one of those deals. Christy had 2 shots on goal of 6+ pounders at lands one of them, doesn't land the other, finishes 3rd. It's just one of those deals. Darold, I want to be honest and frank with you here. It's been a good interview so far, but you're kind of ticking me off because you keep saying those guys keep making good decisions. And, we, as in when you're talking about the guys who missed the cut, you're in freaking 26th in points. You're having your best Elite Series season, and you're talking like you're an Opens pro that's still not there. I need to hear some confidence like what I heard at the Classic where you said you already booked your Grand Lake spot for the Classic. You're doing phenomenal this year, 26th. It's still close, but you're right there from being able to separate. I think 25th to 26th is 17 points from one spot.
I've looked at it too.
And then it's like 17 points from – or it's 14 points from 26th to 40th. You're in the Classic, right. You're fishing well, and we're halfway through the season. Any kind of you don't want to fish tight, but any kind of goals at the Sabine to keep it on track, because it seems like you've had good day ones, you struggle a little bit and barely miss the cut or make the cut, and then you get back up there. It's how do we sustain and not get a 5-pound day at the Sabine for you mentally? Like what are you thinking about?
Yeah, so some of that goes on what I'm talking about. Like I've struggled. I've made a lot out of my practices. I have not had very good practice at all. So some of those day ones were kind of putting lipstick on a pig kind of thing. Like had a few miracle bites that made it look better. But I would say for me, I've actually made a few more conservative decisions. Like at takeoff and at Santee Cooper, I ran to a bedfish that was a 2-pounder first thing because I knew there were 2 good 2.5 pounders that I could catch. And for me, I wanted to get off to a positive start since I'd had a bad practice. That's a little more of a conservative choice because I also knew where some 7-pounders were. But I felt like other competitors would be there fighting for them or they'd be a little harder to catch. So at the Sabine, for me, dude, I just wheels on the bus, man. I'm just trying to maximize each day. I'm trying to beat as many as I can each day. I mean, I want to beat everybody every day. But I noticed like the first 2 years I was fishing like I was on a team tournament here on Toledo Bend or a BFL. I was gambling a little bit too hard. And for me, I wasn't having much success. So when I'm saying those guys, obviously, like I'm a very humble guy. And I have a ton of respect for all of our competitors, how good they are. I've looked at all the point spreads. I've even picked my classic intro song. Okay. The dream is real. It's right there. My goal is to just keep that within grasp going to the last couple of events. I mean, that's the goal. I'd actually love to just go win the Sabine, win the next one, and just solidify being in the Classic.
Win that's AOY.
Yeah. But the whole thing is, dude, I've known you a long time. I'm a guy that took a long time to get to the Opens, and I'm just a guy that wants my shot. And I want my shot to be right there as long as I can, and I feel like if you are, you got to rise to the occasion when it's time and the big moments to come. But yeah, just tons of respect for these dudes and how they do their business. I mean, they pummeled me for 2 years. So now they're easing up a little and let me play a little bit with them. But it's taking everything I got in me to do it, dude. Literally, like there's been 3 or 4 times this year where day 2, I have no fish at noon. And it doesn't look great on paper always, but for me, I've avoided some major catastrophes. I'm very proud of the way I've kind of fought through some of that.
Before we move on, Kyle, I just want to say, we love you. I love you. I had to say that because I feel like my second career could be a motivational coach on like, not many people qualify and make it and belong. And this year is the one time you can be proud of how you're doing, and you're doing it. So, Kyle, I just wanted to bust his balls on that one a little bit because I heard it and I didn't like hearing it because he's fishing pretty dang good this year.
So I'm going to impress you here with my memory. Okay, so you said that the song is, you've already picked your song. Is it going to be Welcome to the Party again? Because I remember everything. That's what it was in 2020.
It won't be Welcome to the Party. It is going to be an homage to one of my favorite bands from Oklahoma, and to one of my dudes that's really becoming a good buddy of mine on the tour that I've gotten pretty close with, Bradley Hallman. Me and him did a little pre-practice trip together and riding to the restaurant one night. He's like, man, I was telling him I love this band. And he's like, you got to listen to the song and let me play it. And so he played it, and it's just a good, it would be a good Oklahoma song. So, and I listen to it often because I'm a dreamer, dude. And when you can really, I'm talking about really visualize something big in your life, and standing on that stage in Tulsa would be huge for me. And when you really, really, really visualize it and think about it, and I mean daily, and even when you say it out loud to people, knowing that some people might snicker or know that if you fail, how that could look. But when you say it, dude, it becomes so attainable. It can be hard to do if it doesn't work out, but it's so attainable when you say it. And that's part of that mental stuff. We all do it different. And for me, it's using those emotions in a positive way for me. That's how I do it. And then it could be Who Let the Dogs Out, Kyle, just for you, just to show you I got that dog.
Big dog. Letting the big dog eat all season.
Who let the hogs out?
So I do want to switch gears a little bit and ask you about this, because the last time we were at Sabine, I didn't get to go. That was one of the few elite tournaments I haven't been to since starting full time. But talk about the crowd, like the atmosphere there, everything around that, because I mean, those folks are rowdy, and I'm not talking about the dog sitting next to you. Those folks are rowdy. I mean, it is a special atmosphere. I've always seen. Like, describe what that's like to the people like myself that haven't seen that in person.
Yeah. So if it's gonna be your first time there, dude, it's Ronnie, would you compare it maybe to like St. Lawrence River, the first couple of years, Waddington area? Like
it's been the record. They share the records back and forth, and I know I went in a monsoon my year. I got to go in person, and they showed up in a monsoon. So yeah, they'll show up in sunshine.
So I'll tell you, like, and these are kind of my, I'm special where I live. I live right on the Toledo Bend here, so I'm the border, Texas, Louisiana. So I don't know if they all adopt me, but all of them's my people. All my Cajuns, all my East Texas people, we're all. And down there, dude, like that's all your folks that come fish Toledo Bend and Sam Rayburn and stuff, man. Like many of them in the crowd are dudes that I've competed against, dudes with a dream, and then just a lot of dudes that work hard and they're ready to have a little good time and see some fish caught. So the crowds are huge, and they're a very enthusiastic group. And then you mix in pretty weather, some good concerts and stuff. It's cool, dude. I mean, it is like, it means a ton to us when we walk out on stage and you see, not just people, but people who are really stacked and enthusiastic, dude. It's cool. And they'll show out, dude. Like we have a couple Meet the Pros events scheduled in Orange. And I think I got one in Lake Charles I got to go to as well. And even those, man, like people just they're fish heads like we all are, dude. And they just want to come talk fishing and learn more about the life. Cause like a lot of these guys I fished with for years, dude. And I feel like I'm the one that got out of prison and like graduated up, so they just want to know all the behind the scenes stuff, I
was going to say, you're a former teacher in that region. You might not have seen many of these folks in your classroom because they may be doing something else, but they live in the same town. But exposing places like Orange, Texas and Waddington, New York, two places totally opposite on the map from each other, basically, and seeing the love for fishing. You could say the same thing about Shelby County, Alabama at Lay Lake, the last stop that we were just at for the Elite Series. To see Will Davis's crew show up and do that, I know that you felt that same deal at Toledo Bend in the Open. Given the poor weather that you guys dealt with, that was phenomenal. Are we going to see a big crowd pro Darold Gleason? Because you're like you said, you're an hour and a half away. Like if you were in it on the final day, you're going to have them come out of the woodwork for you?
If we're in it in the final day, yeah, I mean, church pews will be empty everywhere. All the crowds, East Texas, Louisiana, like everybody do some internet church at night, okay, dude? Because again, I've had a lot of friends, guide customers, just people I've known around here for years, competitors and all that, and they've seen my ride hadn't always been an easy ride. So I would like to think, along with friends and family, there'd be a lot of folks there. I would hope that a lot of people appreciate our journey because a lot of the guys are living that same journey, dude. They just have the dream. They got a boat and they want to go every weekend. And I was that guy for many years. And then like I woke up and here we are. So, but let's, baby steps. Let's get to Saturday. Let's get to Sunday. It would be amazing. I mean, y'all know me well enough. I'm like probably most likely to cry on stage, first top 10 or something. I'm on some short list I know of Dave's to cry like a baby if I get to be in contention.
We need to make that list, Kyle. We need to.
I'm shocked y'all haven't.
I cry every single week when someone wins because it's always I understand what y'all put into it. I see the good and the bad. And like Absolutely. For Will Davis, I was sad for Polnick for his dead fish penalty and losing the way he did. But I was like, every single kid, I said this analogy on Bass Live, has been in the backyard shooting hoops, and they did it over Kobe for the win or over Shaq. Every single local angler wishes they could fish against the best in the world on their home body of water and have a chance to win. And Will Davis got to do that. So we got to see a little bit of emotions there. Before we let you go, I don't want to get too much of your secrets out there, but you said you've mentioned it a couple times, watching the old footage of the pertinent Texas side and stuff. Have you spent a lot of time actually on the water there since, other than tournament practice and tournaments that you fished in the elites and the opens? Like, have you ever gone down there for trips? And then secondly, how do you balance any of the footage that you've watched for a practice day or for a practice game plan? Because you can, obviously, if we broadcast it, the same 100 people are watching it on the elites, and they're going to go to the same canals and check. So is it almost like I've got to just use this with a grain of salt, or I need to put some stock in it?
I don't put much stock in it. And like, I'm not one of the guys that scours every minute. I fast forward through a lot. I just stop anytime Hackney's griping at somebody for coming near him. I want to hear that because I want to prepare for the chewing if I fish near him and how to work that out. But no, most of it to me, and I would think a lot of the guys do this or should be doing it. It's not necessarily you're looking to see exactly who's where, what they're throwing, all that. To me, it just makes me feel more comfortable with the areas. These areas are a long ways apart. They can be treacherous to run, all that. Just makes you a little more comfortable. And you do get an idea of how many guys, when you see like the big map, you see where everybody's fishing. Okay, there's 45 up to Netches. It just gives you an idea of what was good then. That does not mean it's going to be good now. Now, with that said, I'm sure several people might venture up toward where Christie caught them. So that may make that less attractive to people. I don't want to go up there and fish against 10 people in there. What was special is just kind of him and himself. So no, for me, it's just kind of a general thing. And I learned from these guys, dude. Both the guys we're with now and the guys that were here prior in some of the older events, especially, like river fishing not being like my favorite thing. You can pick up little tidbits and things. And a lot of it for me, I notice is just the rhythm, the way the guys fish, not so much their techniques and baits and all that, but just, you can tell the grinders grind well and other guys are on high on their trolling motor, just blowing by stuff. So no, it's just, I like to watch a little, gets me familiar. And usually I have it playing while I'm working on tackle or working on, like my new truck I just got in, that kind of stuff.
Ooh, we were talking about that at the Classic when you're getting your pretty new Tundra. So good to hear that, Darold. Get that sucker wrapped up and ready to go for the Sabine. Just to take it on some dirty old back roads. I understand some of those ramps are out in the middle of nowhere, so be careful. But Darold, appreciate you kind of bracketing the Sabine River preview for us. We kind of covered it extensively, so it's hard to say something that hadn't been said, but it is it's the event every year. You circle because you're worried about it. And not you, but people are. So this is definitely the road bump in the Southern Tour before we go up north. So best of luck, Darold Gleason, 26th in the Bassmaster Classic Angler of the Year standings right now, looking to make his second Classic. Darold, appreciate you. Good luck this week at the Sabine, and we will see you on the other side.
All right, buddy. Appreciate y'all. Thank you both.
Yes, sir. Kyle, Darold Gleason, man, was I a little too hard right there? I felt like I needed to bust. I feel like I need to bust him right there. I do not like guys that have earned the right to call themselves something and don't do it, whether it's humble or not. I had to give him a little motivation, even if he didn't need one. I just felt like he was being too humble in that moment. And hey, you're here. There's always a point. Every Elite Series pro realizes I belong. And I feel like this year he's gaining it. He's feeling like he belongs. So I just needed to hear him say it.
Yeah, and I think we both had kind of some of those conversations with him. He mentioned letting hey, he's got that dog in him. I mentioned all the time to him, like, you just got to get out there and let that big dog eat. Like, you belong, and you're doing this. Like, the moment, it's just like any sport. Like, it's just like any sport. Like, let's say a cornerback in football. The one time he gives up a big touchdown, like, in the next play he's timid, like, it's going to happen again. And I'm not saying this towards Darold. I'm saying that as in, like, that's just how sports are. Like, your confidence is everything. And like, you just have to, like, accept that, like, I'm here for a reason. Like, I'm doing this, and this is where I belong. And like, obviously, like you said, I mean, I think that the results have speak for itself this year and how well he's done. And obviously sitting in a really, really good position right now. And certainly looking forward to seeing how he does there at the Sabine River.
Yeah, I can relate to that as a basketball fan. I'm a Denver Nuggets fan, so life is good right now for Ronnie at watching the way the NBA playoffs have gone. But Jamal Murray, I mean, 1 for 27 over the first 3 quarters of a game, and I'm like, bro. And then he keeps shooting, and all of a sudden, the fourth quarter of one game and the first quarter of the next game, he's got like 64 points combined. So keep shooting if you're a shooter, no doubt. But let's go ahead and segue. Darold made some good points there. We're going to see some of the similar places play. We're going to see some similar strategies play. The baits aren't going to change too dramatically. I guarantee you Kiyoya Fujita is going to bring something out we've never seen, though, things like that. But most of the time, it's going to be the spinner baits, maybe some square bills, some top water, some flipping, bladed jig, things like that. Maybe some river fishing, drop shotting around structure like Taku was and Nico Rig and stuff like that. But we should see it all come into play for this Bassmaster Elite Series event in June. And for fantasy fishing, I kind of look back. I don't normally do this and try to see where people finished, if they fished 18 and 21 and see where they looked. I did, though, this time, because I got to figure out what the heck is going on in Rapala Bassmaster Fantasy Fishing, because it's not my year. I'm getting busted out, Kyle, in company emails. I'm getting busted out in newsletters. I'm sick of it, and I'm ready to get back on the train for Rapala. So if you don't mind, why don't you give me your team and I'll give you my team, and then we'll both go back and forth for Drain the Lake.
Yeah, so before I start this, I want to say that this is similar to the way it was at Lay Lake when I had picked my team, but I'm not sitting here going to lock it in, because by the time I write my fantasy column, like, if there's some changes, just know I had some change of hearts. But
Did you change it at Lay? Did you change it from the?
I did. I changed
for the good or bad.
I changed a few guys. In good, actually. Most everyone was good, which was a surprise. It was mostly Drain the Lake. I switched a couple guys around for Drain the Lake. Went with Joey Cifuentes, who ended up having a good event. I'm kind of regretting that, just because I know he's a good smallmouth angler as well. It'd be a good one to have up north, but he had a good finish. Can't complain with that. And then I went with Jason Christie in Drain the Lake, because I was thinking about saving him for Sabine and ended up using him at Lay Lake, and that worked well. Obviously, I was pretty outspoken about the fact that I thought he was going to win that tournament. So,
and you put him on both your teams. I think you had him on Rapala as well. Yeah,
I did. So that was the only changes. So it actually was mostly good, because I don't remember who I subbed him out for. I want to say
you had all
Matt
8
Herron
Alabama guys.
Yeah. One of them was Matt Herron, which that could have been viewed as a mistake, because obviously he made the final day. But
if you got Christie, then it was yeah.
He's on my team this time. So
cool.
I'm pretty confident in Matt Herron there. So if you want me to go ahead and start, like I said, there might be some discussion in here. It might be some change of hearts.
Tentative
because there's plenty of guys on here that I think potentially would change. So bucket A, and I'm right there with you. Let me stop you right there, Chief. I'm right there with you with not doing well in Rapala this year. Rapala has been the thorn in my side. I cannot get a solid team. You and I are so similar in the sense that we'll pick 2 or 3 of the guys that are like top 15, top 10, and then I'll pick 2 of the bottom 90 or worse. I think
What's
it's
our
just a current
percentage? Let's compare percentages.
percentage right now with Rapala. I'm at 69% even, right on the money.
I'm at 60.8.
So we both got work to do there, but I'm pretty sure we're both doing well in draining the lake. So
yes,
I guess we have some potential there. And you and I were just texting earlier today about being the Rapala for the year. So I'm just making picks off the whim here. I'm firing from the hip, and we're just gonna see what happens with Rapala. But bucket A, for now, once again, I think bucket A is loaded with guys I think could do well. I've got Drew Cook, and I think that there's a handful of reasons. Did well there last time. Obviously didn't fish there in 2018. Wasn't an elite yet then. I just think that any tournament, and granted, it's gotten to the point where we just view Drew Cook as this guy that only fishes for bedfish. But I think that's so far from the truth, because if you've kept up with Drew Cook's career, he's so consistent doing anything. I mean, he's really become one of those, Polnick, Lester, like the really consistent guys that can catch him doing a variety of different things. Like there's not one thing you can just point at and be like, yeah, well, he's no good at that. Like that's his, his weak suit, I guess, if that's what you want to call it. But as of right now, I've got Drew Cook in bucket A. Bucket B, I don't really mind the high percentage. I feel like got to go with Greg Hackney. Hackney did not do me well at Lay Lake. I was actually really surprised with his poor finish there. But like I mentioned, he and I were talking to each other over the phone just a few months ago over a Bassmaster magazine piece that he was being featured in. And we were talking about fishing a balsa square bill. And he mentioned how he kind of dislikes the fact that we almost never have any like summertime grinder Southern tournaments. Obviously won there in 2018 doing the, this exact kind of, like you said, same week of the year pretty much. So, I mean, obviously this is a tournament that he has got to be looking forward to. Just being able to fish the way he loves to fish, grinder, up shallow. I'm sure you'll see a lot of the same baits come to play, frog, buzzbait. He did fish a square bill then as well. So, yeah, I mean, despite the high player percentage, I'm going Greg Hackney in bucket B. Bucket C, we just talked to him on the last podcast. I'm going to stick with Luke Palmer in bucket C in hopes that his streak of never finishing worse than 50th 2 tournaments in a row is true. At this point, I mean, the way my fantasy season's gone, I'm happy with anybody that finishes above the cut line, because I've had plenty of guys finish 20 or 30 spots outside of the cut or worse, each week. So, I mean, I'm taking my odds here. I got Luke Palmer, another one of those guys that did well last time, I think finished somewhere in the 20s, but also a guy that has experience fishing shallow, summertime style tournaments based on where he's at in Oklahoma. Bucket D, I have Matt Herron. Surprised, I guess, a little bit. I haven't taken a huge gander at where the percentages are all lined up in bucket D, but this is another one. Matt Herron, this time of year, like that's kind of his strong suit, just grinder, summertime. You might be able to help me with the exact number, but I know back in 2018, obviously had a really good event. I want to say he was up there in the top, he was on camera at least a couple of the days. So let's see, I'll look it up. So 39th last time, and then 19th in 2018. So, I mean, I guess pretty much the way I'm seeing it is 23rd, 2015, and 46th in 2013. Never not made the cut at Sabine River.
You just totally
probably until this week. So I apologize about that, Matt. But
but he was my preseason prediction. My preseason prediction for winning an event. I picked Matt Herron before the year started to win this event, and he's not going to be on either one of my fantasy teams.
Well,
which is going to ensure that he's going to win. That he's going to win because I didn't.
Well, I'll take those points for you. And like I said, I was just a little surprised. 5.4%. Once again, I've kind of got to the point where I don't really care all that much about percentages because we're just doing so poorly. We just got to pick some guys who are doing well, regardless if they're high percentage or not.
Guys that are actually fishing the body of water that we're competing on.
and I may be giving away your pick here, but I was also extremely, extremely tempted and might switch to Jake Whitaker. Obviously, he did extremely well there in 2018. Not having his best season, obviously, on the Elites this year, but this tournament is one of those that also could set up for the way he's had a lot of success in the Elites in previous tournaments. And like I said, in 2018, was it fifth place finish, I want to say?
Yes, fifth. Got better
Fifth,
every day.
Yeah, so I mean, pretty solid. Bucket E. Oh boy. I have had a hard time picking Bucket E all year long. Seems like I pretty much zig every time I zag, or should have zagged. I'm going with KJ Queen. KJ Queen has not had a great season by any stretch of the imagination compared to his previous couple of Elite seasons. Had some success at the Sabine River, the previous event that he fished there. Obviously, it's different. Darold Gleason mentioned that, obviously, with the spawn and things like that. But it almost seems like if you're good there, you're just good there, because it's always going to take about the same amount of weight. It's always going to be pretty similar fishing. The same things played, generally speaking, every time we're there. So I got KJ Queen getting back on track in Bucket E at the Sabine River. So to round it out again, Bucket A, Drew Cook. Bucket B, Greg Hackney. Bucket C, Luke Palmer. Bucket D, Matt Herron. And Bucket E, KJ Queen. Tentatively, we shall see. But that's what I've got for now.
What's the winning weight?
I got 46-12.
Okay, 46-12.
And that's just a shot in the dark. That's just where we're going. You and I had discussed the previous winning weights, and I just went somewhere right in the middle of all those. So that's what I went with.
I went with 47-4. And here's my lineup. So Bucket A, I've got Mike Iaconelli. Hopefully he keeps it in the water this week. We know in the past that the Sabine, he has ended up in the woods. God forbid we'd have to DQ him for leaving the playing field, quote unquote, as everybody wants to say online. But that's not a real thing. Just a heads up on the Bassmaster podcast. I think Iaconelli overall is fishing a phenomenal year. He's got his mind in the right place. He's got his skills. We were wondering what's lacking. Is it his decision-making last year? Is it physically able to compete and continue to do this? Well, we're now seeing that he has changed up his mindset to how he used to fish, probably, and he's back on track. Bucket A, Mike Iaconelli. Bucket B, I feel like this guy does well on the Coosa River, on those grinder river type deals. He's a Midwest guy that lives in these types of bodies of water stylistically. And I am picking Bob Downey. You just said it right there. I'm picking Bob Downey. I really like that pick, obviously, because I chose him. But I think Bob is just a really underrated angler. 0.3%.
No doubt.
He's never going to brag about himself. And when you have a bucket with Jason Christie and Greg Hackney, and that's 40% and 26%, I'm not picking history on terms of like he won, so I'm picking him type of thing. Like, obviously, Jason Christie and obviously Greg Hackney are good here, but Greg Hackney missed the cut in 2021 after winning in 2018. So it's just, there is a time of year thing that has his side to it for Hackney. I'm not doubting Hackney at all. I just think that I think outside of those two, if the scope of that, I really like Bob Downey's style for possibly grinding it out there. Bucket C, this guy, no matter if he would have been second or not last time we were here, he has done well at the Sabine seemingly every time we've gone here. It fits his style, being from Mississippi, being a grinder in general, knowing how to just eke out what he can, fishing close to the ramp, fishing far from the ramp, fishing a canal, whatever it is, top water, everything in between. Plus, he texted me the other day and said, it's about time I had another second place finish, don't you think? And I said, why don't you just make that a W? So Brock Mosley is my Bucket C pick. He had been on a really good hot streak there. I think he might not say this, and this might not be true, but I think the second place wears on you a little bit. Aaron Martins, we saw it. Tommy Biffle, we've seen it. Until you get that breakthrough, you just feel like you're just coming up short. And Brock's been on that list of guys who deserve a win and have been close. I feel like he's maybe trying a little hard, or practice is not going well, and he just doesn't have a plan necessarily. I really expect him to get it back on track here at the Sabine. He's right there in the middle of the season, what's he at for AOY? But being in bucket C, you're just out of the Classic. 47th. So this would be a bad season for him, but it's a great season for a lot of guys. I think that he gets it on track here before we head up north where he does damage as well. Now, bucket D, you did pick my pick with your secondary suggestion, Jake Whitaker. I think that he has been on that Luke Palmer train, except instead of never finishing back-to-back 50s or worse, it's like he's got a top 20, he's got a bottom 20. He's got a top 20, he's got a bottom 20. And then he had another bottom 20 or whatever. I don't know where he finished at lay, but he struggled at lay as well. We know that's, as a former rookie of the year, as a guy who's got multiple top 10s, close to wins on places like the St. John's, St. Clair, Sabine River, Chickamauga. He's gotten them all over. So he's not just a one-trick pony. I think that he does well fishing in tight quarters, lower weights. I like him here. He needs a good one. I think last year we said it, out of the 9 Elite Series events, when he missed the Classic by, so he's missed the Classic 2 years in a row, which is uncharacteristic. He missed it because he was accidentally late and got DQ'd for one of his weights at Pickwick. He loses 50 spots. He finishes in the 90s, would have made the cut. He loses and misses the Classic by 50 points at the end of the year. That is just a clerical error that's you're never going to have happen again. Then last year, he had 4 finishes in the top 25 out of 9. That's fantastic. 4 top 25s. He also had 4 bottom 25s, and then he had a 50. And then he misses the Classic by 30 or 40 points. Something has gone on with Whitaker where he used to just catch 5 or 6, 7 fish, culling very little, but he'd catch the right ones, be good. He's seemingly culling more than he's ever culled before in Elite Series events, and his finishes have been higher and lower than they've ever been. He lost that consistency. So I'd expect him to feel a little more comfortable in the do-or-die Sabine River than he does elsewhere, because you're always one bite from being inside the cut at the Sabine. Then bucket E, I just featured him last week in the Tackle Tip Tuesday. Skylar Hamilton talked a lot about seawalls and how he enjoys fishing them. I kind of treat those dead-end canals as seawalls. You've got that hard bank that's just rigid all the way down, and then in the back of the canal, I feel like Skylar has done decent, when it comes to some places you have like, let's just say Chickamauga one year, you're in the top 25, next year you miss the cut, and you don't really have a rhyme or reason why you did well. I feel like he's always been mid-pack. He's been inside the cut, in the, I think, top 25, top 30, and then if he misses the cut, it's just barely. So for bucket E, there's not many sure things in bucket E this year. He is one that I'm confident in can have a good finish here. So bucket A, Mike Iaconelli. Bucket B, Bob Downey. Bucket C, Brock Mosley. Bucket D, Jake Whitaker. And bucket E, Skylar Hamilton for my Rapala team. I was tempted, Kyle, to just pick 5 bona fide smallmouth hammers just because it doesn't make sense, and I might turn my season around. So that's my thoughts on that. But now let's get over to Drain the Lake, and I'll give you my first 4. I've got a couple duplicates, which always bodes well for me because my Drain the Lake normally does pretty dang good. And if I could pick the right few guys, then I can maybe duplicate some success in both teams. So my first 4, I've got Iaconelli and I've got Whitaker. They're my duplicates from my Rapala to my Mercury Drain the Lake. I've got Mark Menendez, wily old veteran, totally cool with grinding it out. And I've got Keith Poche, the absolute most wild card person we've got in the field. I have no idea what to expect, but I picked this team before the season started, before anything else has happened this year. I'll say this, he's got the equipment to go off the grid and be successful this week. We've seen him do it in fiberglass in 2018. He got a top 5 going, Christie, he went up and did Christie's pattern before Christie, won the event the next time we were down there with it. Not the same creek, but just that going all the way up north type of thing. So those are my first 4: Ike, Whitaker, Menendez, and Poche. Give me your first 4.
We don't agree on a single one of those, but maybe your last 4 will be duplicates of my top 4. So to start out, I have Lee Livesey, Tyler Rivette, Greg Hackney, and Logan Latuso. Those are going to be my first 4 for Drain the Lake. Obviously, 3 Louisiana guys in that. And it's not necessarily just based on the Louisiana. I almost never pick based on that. It's more just stylistically. I got to watch Logan Latuso fish a good bit at Lay Lake. Covered him on day,
Had a good
want to
event.
say 3. Yeah, it was day 2 or 3. And watched him, pitch a little Texas rig worm around, and we were just so impressed with his casting ability and his ability to get it up underneath docks and things like that. And he mentioned, how fishing cypress trees and fishing tight quarters in Louisiana, it's like something he's super good at. And I think that this is the event, obviously on the schedule that I would want Logan Latuso on my Drain the Lake. Same way with Rivette. Obviously, Rivette had some incredibly good finishes to start the season. Definitely could have used him there, but I think obviously sets up well for him. Lee Livesey is definitely a bit of a wild card in the sense that obviously did really well there last time, was making some long runs, doing some different things, getting in some extremely shallow wados. Yeah, I mean, just shallow wados, water. Excuse me. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Hey, you're true Cajun. Now, shallow waters.
But yeah, but all this Louisiana talk's gotten to me. But obviously did extremely well there last time. You can maybe, pitch in a little more of the background on that, but has spent a good amount of time alligator fishing. The best I remember is what the story was. So actually, was really familiar with the body of water. And, for at least for me, this is the event that I wanted to use Lee Livesey. So once again, Lee Livesey, Tyler Rivette, Greg Hackney, and Logan Latuso. And let me just say this. Holding off on some of these guys until the Sabine has been hard, has been very, very difficult. But this tournament, Lay Lake, the smallmouth tournaments, obviously, I think are kind of the equalizer for most people that are smart about their Drain the Lake squad. You've got a whole, pile of sticks to throw up at the last 3 tournaments or Drain the Lake, in the northern swing. But holding on to a lot of these guys that I've got for this tournament has been a big part of my strategy. So if it doesn't work out, I'm probably going to let go of the rope and just start making picks from the hip. So we'll see what happens.
So say that again. It was Livesey, Latuso, Rivette, and Hackney, right?
That's my first 4. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. And I think Livesey said not just fishing, but navigation of the Sabine River. Just knowing how to navigate it, feeling comfortable with that is a huge deal of getting around. My other 4, I've got Logan, Queen, Shryock, and Frazier. So I've got Wes Logan, KJ Queen, Hunter Shryock, and Micah Frazier. I've already used Mark. I also used Lee Livesey at the Classic. I used Mark Frazier there. So Logan Latuso, I wasn't going to put him here because I felt like that played too into stereotypes. Like he's supposed to catch him here because, that's where he's from. When it's not necessarily a destination body of water that he's going to necessarily go fish for fun and have a lot of experience on. But I will say, looking back at it, I was going to use him at Santee Cooper. I didn't. I'm glad he got 68th. He didn't, nothing crazy there. I don't currently have Logan Latuso picked for my season for Drain the Lake. I was going to use him there. I didn't use him here. I maybe should because Robbie, his father, has freaking caught him here. he's done well here.
It's just a style of fishing. It's like
it
like
is, but it's like
style of fishing.
It's so hard to predict that, you got 57 dudes doing this style of fishing and only, 27 of them are going to make the cut, doing it, or you get into a really popular area and you end up being the odd man out. Who knows? Not saying that for Logan, but just in general. So I went with Wes Logan. I felt like a lot of people were going to spend him at Lay. Yes, he's got a lot of experience at Lay. Yes, we had him on to preview the fishing in month of May. The Lay event didn't go the way he thought, but I had him already picked here. I think that this could be a similar style as he would have employed or deployed at Lay, but maybe has a better result. Same reason why you picked KJ Queen. He had success here, I believe, his rookie year or somewhere around there. Hopefully he fuels up his boat with gas and he puts the life jackets in his boat. He'll be good to go then. Hunter Shryock, man, Hunter Shryock, I would not have picked him to do well at Lake Murray and almost win that event. How he did it, I would have picked him to flip up or frog up or put braid on 7 rods and do well. And I feel like that's the Sabine River this week. He can do that. And then Micah Frazier. Micah's interesting. We'll have to have him on the podcast at some point. His priorities have definitely shifted. He's a big time family man. He's got a lot of other investments. I love the heck out of him. He's still such an underrated and stellar angler. And I feel like we pick him a lot where people would think he was overrated because he doesn't come through. But I'm trying to figure out, it's one of those things. You don't pick this player on a back-to-back because they always take a rest day. Kawhi Leonard's never playing a back-to-back. He's going to sit out the second game. Micah, being away from his family for a couple weeks, may not perform as well as we'd hope. He told it straight up, I'm not going to do good at lay. I haven't figured it out. He didn't do good at lay. I think that a couple weeks off, the Sabine River, a place that he's done well, he's maximized a little and turned it into a lot. I feel like maybe some people let it get out in front of him, and he's not too urgent to go run around. I'm going to just fish what's in front of me. So I picked Micah there. That sounds so weird. I'm just trying to encapsulate how to describe Micah because he's got the talent, the raw talent ability to do well everywhere. But he's just in a little bit of a groove and life change as well. So my 8 with my last 4 are Iaconelli, Menendez, Poche, Whitaker. Then I've got Logan, Queen, Shryock, and Frazier. Kyle, give me your last 4 before we get the heck out of here.
Last 4, I have Steve Kennedy, Matt Herron, Caleb Summerall, and Darold Gleason. So obviously a couple more Louisiana guys and a couple of Alabama hammers to go on there. Obviously Herron and Hackney are 2 of the guys that duplicate for both of the Rapala Bassmaster Fantasy Fishing and Mercury Drain the Lake. So to fill out my 8-man roster, I have Lee Livesey, Tyler Rivette, Greg Hackney, Logan Latuso, Steve Kennedy, Matt Herron, Caleb Summerall, and Darold Gleason. This is just the tournament I wanted to use Kennedy. Obviously, I think that there was plenty of tournaments to this point you could have, and it would have bode extremely well. But I'm expecting we're going to see another. I thought it was a crab, deal there at Sabine River. So I think that Steve Kennedy is could do really well here. I looked at his results, has been pretty steady, has had a couple events at the Sabine that weren't great. But for the most part, I want to say, let me see, I'm looking it up right now. Majority of them were inside the cut, 31, 11. There was a 91 and a 44. So it's made the cut 3 out of 4 times. The one was a bomb.
What was the 91? Was that 15?
15. So the 18 tournament was 11. So I don't know why this was just one on the I had circled for basically since the beginning of the season to go with Steve Kennedy. Matt Herron, same thing like we talked about with Rapala. I think he's just a old school summertime grinder. Like obviously this is just kind of like right up his alley, being able to do the same things we saw him do in 18 with just flipping, frogging, just fishing, just fishing shallow, doing his thing. Summerall, same way with, Livesey, obviously still an aluminum boat. So, I think he'll have some advantages getting to some places. And once again, it's the same way with what we said at Lay Lake. Somebody that was a, quote unquote local was not going to do well. And there were several of them that didn't do well based, compared to what you would have expected. They did, pretty bad. There's really no way to put it. I think that, some of the Louisiana guys might have the same thing, but I think it's just a style of fishing. I just think that you get there in June, like we talked about with Darold Gleason. It's just a river grinders type style tournament. Like these guys that live in Louisiana and fish this time of year, there's only pretty much a few ways to catch them. Like it's catching them shallow like this on a lot of these lakes. Like, Darold Gleason fishing Toledo Bend is entirely different, but you take almost every other body of water in the state of Louisiana.
Yeah, all that.
They're all like they're all different, but at the end of the day, they're almost all the same as far as how you catch them. So I think that I'm not sitting here suggesting they're all going to catch them extremely well, but I think that I'm just playing my odds here and going with a few Louisiana guys and then some guys that just historically have done well there, and it sets up stylistically. So to round it out, did I already say my full 8? I can't remember if I did or not.
I think you did. Okay, you said Livesey and Rivette. The one thing I'll mention is when you look back at some of these results and you see guys in the 90s, that doesn't mean they just didn't catch them. The one aspect of getting back, losing time. I remember David Williams' rookie year back in 2015 for the event that Chris Lane won. He lost like 6 hours on day one and had like one bass for 2 pounds, and then caught the biggest bag of the tournament on day two and the biggest bag of day three on day three, and almost made the cut. Like got like a 12th. Like, some of these guys find stuff and they just don't make it there, or they don't get back, or something happens in transit. So don't count out some people. And then the second thing I wanted to mention, I almost broke my rule and I almost picked Steve Kennedy as well. I told you there's a couple rules. I don't pick Steve Kennedy in fantasy anymore, because every time it was like, oh, you pick him, he does terrible. Oh, I won't pick him, he'll do top 10. Oh, I'll pick him, he won't do well. So I was, screw that, I'm not doing that anymore. That was like 3 years ago. I swore it off. So still sticking to that, but I almost broke it this week. So Kyle, the 6th stop of the Bassmaster Elite Series season is coming up this week. We're excited that we got to talk to Darold Gleason in this episode of the podcast. If you're still hanging with us, remember I'm not going to do it. I don't know how to end it now. I was going to do a promo for the Bass Cat thing, but I don't have the stuff in front of me. I just wanted to do it and then I forgot. Cool. Kyle, we had Darold Gleason on, 6th stop of the Bassmaster Elite Series season. Excited to get here for the Sabine River. This is going to be a game changer for the points race. We got guys that are just in or just out of the Classic that need a good one here. Maybe smallmouth aren't their strong suit. They're trying to buy as many points down south as they can. Maybe some guys are trying to eke out as many points as they can from the south because they know they've got money in the bank up north. But it should be a great event. Fans are going to be great. I think if it works out, don't hold us to it, we will do a couple on-site Bassmaster podcast hits between me and you that are kind of encapsulating the week of the Sabine, and we'll see how that goes with Kyle's responsibilities on site, mine in live, and we'll see how we can do it. But at least 10 minutes a day, we'll catch up with each other and see how the tournament went from each perspective. But Kyle, for this episode of the podcast presented by Black Rifle Coffee Company, signing off. We will see you down in Orange, Texas for the 6th stop, the 2023 Bassmaster Elite Series season.